Got ink on your hands?
You're live. We need paper towel.
Yes, please. Good morning and welcome back
Good morning.
to study in Luke. We have been going through this for a couple months now. We took a little hiatus last week to do our little fellowship breakfast, and we're back and we're in Luke chapter 5, where Jesus is going to call his first disciples. And so Luke chapter 5 verses, thank you.
Wait a minute.
Morning.
I thought we were doing lesson 5.
Yeah.
No, we're stuck in lesson 4.
Oh, we didn't get done.
Yeah.
That's right, we didn't get done.
Okay.
Last time I talked about that, I broke them down into 10 lessons. I think it's
Yeah.
10. And
We didn't get
then
done.
I realized that I actually planned it for more like an hour lesson than a
Okay.
half-hour lesson. So it's
All
gonna. I know our lesson. We are in lesson 4, but we are in chapter 5 of Luke.
right. Okay.
5, 1 through 11. So we're going to start, and hopefully we'll get to up to chapter 8 by the end of this thing.
Okay.
Okay, so one day that Jesus is standing by the lake of Gennesaret. Where is the lake of Gennesaret? Do you know where that is? Is that what yours says? Does your translation say the lake of Gennesaret?
Mine says Sea of Galilee.
Sea of Galilee. It's the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
See, and I didn't think about this. I love this one guy. His name's Dan McCullen, and he does TikToks, and he answers scholarly questions, and some of them aren't very scholarly, but but he answers them in a scholarly way. And he's like me. It's like there's no question that's too small or what seems like too stupid, if you will. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And it's a good question then, right? And the other day he did one, he says, well, were the names of the apostles actually John, Peter, James, you know? And he said, well, you have to understand that it's in a different language. And so when we take that language, we transliterate. In other words, we try to keep true to the letters, and then we change it into what we would do in our language, how it would sound in our language. A good example is my name. My name is Edward in English. If you take it into Spanish, it is Eduardo. See how they do that? A lot of the Greek names were us's. Like Luke would have been Lucas, or
Jesus.
and Jesus. So they transliterate them, and if you read the actual Greek or whatever, it's different. And sometimes when you, and this is my favorite, when you go and you look at some of the Old Testament names, those are also transliterated. And you get to names where the first letter begins with an A. It's usually a breathing mark. Remember I talked about the breathing marks. If the little comma goes one way, it means it's a H sound. If it goes the other way, it's just a no sound at all. And so when you get to an A, there could be no sound at all. But yet they'll put an A there, and so when we say it in English, it wouldn't be there in the Hebrew.
Is that why Aaron has 2 A's?
Exactly.
Could you give us?
So it's got a breathing mark for the A, so you get a and then you get the aleph, which is the first letter, which is an A, so you get an AAR. So, good point.
From your ecclesiastical training to today, could you give us an example how you would pronounce Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and just give one or two examples?
Cepha or something like that was Peter, right?
No,
He was
Cephas.
Cephas, yeah.
So, I'm sorry, my pen exploded on me, and now I got it all in my hand. I need to look at. I don't have a Greek.
You
Greek
could fake
Bible.
it. We would know the difference.
I know that. I don't want to do that for you. Let me get back to you. I'll get back to you on that offline, so we can go ahead and get this started. I already wasted enough time with that, but so here we go. The Lake of Gennesaret. I wanted to bring that up. Sea of Galilee, and that's how we transliterated the word and changed the sounding of it.
No other lakes in Upper.
And it says lake, and we call it a sea, so it's like interesting how they do that. I'm taking you out of the study. I'm reading the Odyssey and the Iliad. I just read the Odyssey. I read the Iliad, and then I just finished the Odyssey. And it's interesting because if you know anything about Greek mythology and Roman mythology, they're basically the same gods, but they have different names, such as Zeus is Saturn, or Zeus, Poseidon, or Neptune.
Right.
So there's the different names of the same god. Hera is the queen, Luna, but the Odyssey and the Iliad were written by Homer in Greek. So I know the Greek gods, but the person that translated it with the Roman gods. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's interesting, but anyway, that's from Latin. Yeah, it was probably translated from Greek into Latin, and then he translated from the Latin. Anyway, so Sea of Galilee, the people were there. They get in 2 boats. What do you think? What do you make of Simon's reply to Jesus' request to let down their nets? Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught a thing.
He thought it was an insult, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, I know I get angry with certain person when they say something to me that I know, right? I know.
He stays angry.
I know, and they make a point to say it to you. It's kind of like when you go to a mechanic and they're working on the car, and what do you ask them? Well,
what's wrong?
Is there gas in it?
Oh.
You know, it's like I've studied mechanics for blah years, and
That's called pride. But okay.
And so here's this carpenter, you know, asking them to let down their nets. It's like, dude, we've been fishing all night. I think you're right there. It's kind of man, that's kind of insulting. Don't you think we know how to fish? There, Jesus.
I don't know, because he followed it up very quickly with, but at your word.
Exactly. So he's like,
But if you say so.
if you say so.
If you say so.
Yeah, but I'm kind of wondering. I know my own personality, in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, we'll show you. We'll let down the nets,
right.
and then they start pulling them in. It's like, uh-oh, or the mechanic's like, oh, you know what? There isn't any gas in it.
Well, how many times have you tried to do something and not been able to do it? You want to give up on it, and you just keep going, and all of a sudden it appears, it's done.
Yeah, many a times. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's a different angle.
Yes, exactly.
Always.
When I was working construction, old timers would always say, "You're holding your mouth wrong." so just need that, like I said, different angle, different perspective. Maybe looking at it from the perspective of he says uses the name Master, first. So, but we'll try it because you say so. I like that. So. Add-on question: do you think that was disrespecting Jesus? Like I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, if you say so, or did he say?
Yeah,
he said,
It
"No,
just
Master,
came
if
out
you
so
say
fast.
so,
It was just probably part of the conversation.
Well,
That's
that's
not-
answered in verse 8 when he was like, when Peter was like, oh, I'm a sinful person, because Peter answering his own question, your question, because he's saying, he felt badly for how he treated Jesus.
Go away from me because
Yeah.
I'm a
Right.
sinful person.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
After the fact though,
Right,
you know,
right.
after the fact, it's like,
Oh, jeez.
oh man, that didn't work out. I was going to show him, and now, you know, he showed me. And I think you can agree with this. Sometimes God does that to you. You know what you should do, and you're like, that ain't going to work. And then you do it, and it works, and you're like, wow, God showed me. And that's like this. Okay. Why do you think that Peter? Why do you think that Peter said that? Let's see. Getting into the next part, the sons, the calling of the companions were astonished at the fish, and they were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Did you all know that?
Yes, they were fishing partners.
Yeah, partners. That the word actually is like in business together. So
Was this John the Beloved? Is this the
no,
same?
this is the
Is this
son.
the same? Is it different John, or is it John?
John and James. Yes, it is.
What line are you on?
Which is it?
We're
Oh,
down here.
10.
Is it a different John?
The verse?
It should be the same John.
I
Yes.
think there's only one.
10, okay.
Isn't there only one?
James's
John,
brother John.
Oh,
No,
wrong
there's
page.
there's a couple.
Brother
Several.
John.
9, 10.
Because you always hear about
Is
the
that where
three
we are?
going
We're-
with him.
Chapter 5?
John,
You got
James,
Luke
and Peter.
before.
Peter, James, and John.
We're in-
Yeah, there was only one John. I thought there was another John.
I don't think there's another John.
I don't think so either. I think I'm wrong.
893.
3.
You're right.
We're
894?
In ours?
we'll actually get to the whole list here, hopefully
Okay.
in a couple of
Okay,
chapters.
now we're on the right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so he also tells Peter, it's Simon, right this time because he hasn't changed his name yet. Don't be afraid. From now on, you will be you will fish for people. That's the way my translation goes.
Mine says you will be catching men.
Yeah.
Have no
Which is
fear.
weird.
From now on, you'll be catching men.
Okay, so
Should've
why
said
do you
that
think he
sounded
said
like
don't
a
be
fish you
afraid?
Because it's pretty fearful if you've been fishing all night and you haven't caught a thing, and then all of a sudden your nets are full. It would make you suspicious that it wasn't necessarily a good thing. Maybe it was an evil thing,
Like he's some kind of sorcerer or
or
something?
he something. It could be.
Yeah.
I was thinking bigger picture than just the catching of,
The crux is who asked him to put the net down.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that was the point.
Don't be,
Have faith in Jesus, because I told you put the net down, see what happens.
And
But
it kind of
don't
goes
be
back to
afraid.
like they told them in the fields, don't be afraid. Like what he said to the shepherds, and the angels came. Don't be afraid. Maybe it was just a way of calming them, because I'm sure that experience caused some chaos. You know, first of all, their nets were breaking, and they had to call over other boats, and they were probably pretty riled up. So
And the boats began to sink.
and the
Yeah.
boats began to sink,
They
yeah.
had to
Yeah,
run
it's like,
the
oh,
boats
yeah.
on shore.
Extended slightly.
But you, the next the continuation of the next line there. So they pulled their boats up to the shore, left everything, and followed him.
that's always been something I thought was really
I thought that kind of answered the question. Why did he say don't be afraid? Because he was asking them to do. It's not in the text there, but he was like asking them, "Hey, come and follow me," and to leave everything behind and to follow someone. Everything
Weren't
you
they
know.
married and had families? And
Yeah, to leave everything behind. Okay, so
Well,
their business.
He
Can you
told one
imagine
of
just
the
leaving your
apostles,
work one day and
No.
when he
going and
said,
doing
can
something
I
else?
go
These
and
boats full
tell
of
my
fish.
father
Yeah.
that I'm leaving?
Well,
No, you have to make your decision.
it's an invitation.
yeah.
This whole thing's
Yeah,
an
they have. I don't
invitation.
remember which one it
Yeah.
was.
And Christ filled the nets, and then said, "Don't be afraid. This isn't sorcery. I'll be here to help you." So the next time you go to do something you're not sure of, right? Why is he telling me to put down those nets? I just
Yeah.
did it all day and we didn't get anything, you know? Right? So I'm going out and I'm knocking on a door to be an evangelist, and I say, "Why am I doing this? I know what they're going to say." Not
Yeah,
fair.
remember
Just
those
do it and
fish.
See what happens.
Remember those fish.
Yeah, it's a lesson in threshold paralysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
That's a great-
I like
Ooh.
that.
That's a really great analogy.
Years.
I like threshold paralysis.
Threshold paralysis.
But I really
And-
thought it was interesting too, the fact that they filled, like, if you were a fisherman and that was everything, that was your whole livelihood, the way you supported yourself, your family, your pride was wrapped up into it, your place in the community, and then they just left them on the shore. That's not something someone would do unless they'd had some kind of,
Experience with
Right.
their nets
real
being
real
full.
repentance, or some kind of real change, a real miraculous thing, because you wouldn't just leave your livelihood laying on the shore or in the nets or whatever. It doesn't say they may have released the fish or whatever, but you wouldn't have just left that.
I don't think this was a catch and release kind of thing.
Well, we don't know, but you
No.
wouldn't
Yeah,
have
but-
done
but-
that.
right.
But
They would never-
yeah, now you kind of going off what Bill was saying. Can you imagine you're fishing, you haven't caught anything, your business is kind of, and this guy that doesn't know what he's talking about comes and tells you how to do it, and he's right. And now you realize, why didn't we listen to him in the first? Just think, if we would have followed his way of doing things, we would be rich right now with all the fish that we could have caught. So we've been doing things our way, and he wants us to do it his way. I'm going to say this. I am currently reading on nonviolence, the Christian perspective of nonviolence. And I just finished a book by a man by the name of Yoder. He's a Mennonite. He's in the Mennonite community. Anyway, he's talking that nonviolence, it means nonviolence. It doesn't mean that, if someone comes at you and say, God, they're going to kill you or they're going to attack you. Anyway, Jesus taught nonviolence in his entire life and death. That was a nonviolence response. And 2,000 years later, we're still struggling with letting go of our way of thinking, the world's way of thinking, and doing it his way. Look at the wars, look at the people, look at our country. Over half the people think that it's safer to have a gun on your hip in case someone attacks you than it is to actually talk to the person. Anyway.
Well, nonviolence with a purpose works.
With a purpose.
Martin Luther King proved that.
I was gonna say.
Yes,
And so did
exactly.
Gandhi.
We just
Gandhi.
got through that.
Yeah,
Right.
Martin Luther
Well,
The
King.
book we just
Jr.
read, Martin Luther King's nonviolence, but then the younger people coming up can't be patient enough, and so they gotta start doing the
Exactly.
violent things.
And look at the early church. The early church was persecuted, and they didn't use violence in response. They were nonviolent. Some people call it pacifists, but the truth of the matter is they were using the words "love your enemies" that Jesus taught as the actual
Right.
way of life, and they loved the people that were persecuting, prayed for them, told, and what happens over a couple hundred years in the Roman Empire? All of a sudden, it went from being persecuted to being tolerated to the religion of the empire. Because of that, not because they overpowered them with violence or force, but because they loved them. So
That's the right word.
they loved them into Christianity, and I think that's they left everything and followed him. And I think this story, that's what this story is about seeing what, if we listen to what Christ tells us and we do what he says, we will have abundance like this. And my sermon is done.
Love is the glue.
I think so. And that book that I read is called "What Would You Do?" and it asks that question: what would you do if a gunman held a gun to you and was, you thought he was going to kill you or your family member? What would you do? Would you act in violence? Would you, pull the revolver that you've got underneath your bed out and shoot that. Yeah. Anyway, and that's his a lot of the stories he used. People that use the mindset, I'm supposed to love this person. Even though this person wants to destroy me, if I love this person in a true way, not just to save my life, but to show them, because maybe they've never seen that. And so, anyway, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna, this whole thing's about love.
Uh-huh.
So this is all about love. Whole book.
But some people don't want to be loved.
You don't have a
That's the
choice.
problem.
I mean, what choice do you have?
That's
You're a
true.
Christian. You're a Christian at the time that this was written, and you're being persecuted. Where are you going to go and get a howitzer to blow someone up? You can't do it. There's no choice. You've got one weapon, and that weapon works.
I think the one of the best things, if you know the history, right? The Christianity began, and right after Christianity began, not long, Christianity began when Christ died around 30, 33, 40, right? At 70, the Jewish people rose up and got wiped out. And so I think that was kind of a lesson to the Christians. Hey, we don't want to do like they did. Even though they were, the beginning was majority Christians, but it was like, we don't want to do like that. So we want to listen to what Christ says and the love.
Well, the way the Bible's written, you would think that the Christians in Israel were a big thing. Hey, folks, they're a little tiny group of people surrounded by millions of people that are thinking different than they do.
Mhm.
You're starting a church on this corner in New York City, and no one else is a Christian.
So like
That's
Faith
the
Family in the
analogy.
middle of Hillsborough
Brandon.
County.
Or even worse,
Similar.
imagine if we would relocate to Polk County.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I just want to say something here that really strikes me about this, because the last thing Jesus says to them is, before they left their boats, was, "Don't be afraid."
Don't be afraid. Yep,
So in love, we should not be afraid.
exactly.
However, the church,
Paul said that.
especially in America, has based everything that they teach on fear.
Yes.
If you don't do this, then you're going to go to hell. If you do that, you're going to lose fellowship with God. If it's all about fear, and there's no love to balance it.
And control
Yes.
and power.
Well,
That's
I'm just
the way
saying
of the
that's
world.
Right.
that's
what
where,
preached.
when people say, Jesus didn't come to condemn the world, he came to free it.
Mhm.
True freedom in love looks a lot different than people are practicing in Christianity, the majority of people.
Well, that's something that I, as the pastor, have to. There's in my mind, and what I read in Scripture says, I'm to allow other people to have a voice. That's scary.
Because their
Because
voice
they
isn't
might
always
not have
loving.
the same voice that I
Yeah.
have, meaning they might not have the same message that I have. But because of my love, and because I love them and I want them to be free, I have to listen to their message too. Now, I don't have to agree with it, but I have to, I can talk against it, but I still have to let them have the freedom to have that message. And that's important. That's important because I have the fear that they're going to try to take the congregation in another direction, but at the same time, I don't, because of the love and the mutual respect, I can let that go.
That's hard.
Pastors.
Yeah, I'm the only one that's right syndrome. Yes. So.
Well, it's hard because you have a bigger vision, and people get focused and narrowed in. So it is hard to see that and let people trip and fall sometimes. That's hard because you want to be like a parent and protect people.
That's if you ever did that as a parent, it's one of those you see that's what's going to happen. You're like, and you want to stop it, but it's not going to kill them. It's
then
not going to
again-
maim them or anything, and so you let them fall. You
But
know,
then again, it could be like a Jesus moment here where they try something different and then we're
then
all
they
amazed.
realize that hey,
We're all amazed that it worked.
Okay. Any more questions or any comments about that story? Let's go through the next one real quick. I got a couple questions. The next one is 12 through 16, and this is Jesus heals a man with leprosy. While Jesus was in one town, that's interesting, in one town, one of the towns. Doesn't give an actual place. Usually he says he was here, he was there. He just says he was in one of the towns. Kind of like Luke, you remember Luke had studied, right? He went and he interviewed people and he's getting the scoop, right? It's like a journalist. And he's got this story, but he really can't narrow it down.
What's the passage?
It's
12.
12,
5, 12,
5:12.
5 through 17.
Chapter
12.
5?
Yes.
Okay.
12 through 16.
I thought it was chapter 6.
I thought
we're
you
still
said
in
chapter
five.
12,
We're still in
so
chapter
it's all
5.
right.
We're still in chapter 5.
We haven't moved through chapter
Holy
5 yet.
macaroni.
I know.
We're moving a little slower.
Well, you
Yes.
came in later after he
Right.
had told us.
Okay,
Didn't
so-
buy my ticket to the last minute.
So this
Right
this,
here.
this idea of leprosy is any kind of skin disease, and in the Old Testament they had
Thank you.
they had rules and regulations. Lepers couldn't be around people. They and especially rabbis or holy people could not touch them. And then you notice right away it says Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. It's like, what's he
Is
doing?
it transmittable by touch?
Yes.
Yeah.
That now see
Not by breathing, not in the air.
Yeah,
Okay.
leprosy at that time, they didn't know what it was. So any kind of skin disease was leprosy, and they were afraid you were going to get it. It didn't have to be what we know today as leprosy, where you touch someone and they get it.
Their skin.
Yeah, if you had the pox, any of the
Eczema.
poxes,
Or poison ivy.
or poison ivy,
Eczema.
you touch somebody with poison ivy, you get it. Or,
Yeah.
The eczema you don't give it by
Yeah,
touching,
but
but
they
that
know
would have
that,
been
they saw
considered eczema would have been considered leprosy because it's a skin disease.
And they wouldn't have known
Yeah,
at that
exactly.
point that you
Especially-
can't give it that way.
Especially if you didn't touch the person,
Right.
right? So I like that idea. If they've got a skin disease, just stay away from them, right? So
Sort of like AIDS was treated when it
100%,
first came around.
yeah.
You know?
So he calls out to Jesus, says, Jesus, if you are willing. So he's got faith in Jesus, and then Jesus responds by reaching out and touching them. And then immediately the leprosy left him. Wow, could you imagine that? I think we got special effects in movies that do stuff like that now, right? So you can kind of picture that in your mind. He says, I am willing, be clean, and immediately they left him. And then Jesus says, don't tell anyone, okay? But go and show yourself to the priests and others and offer the sacrifices Moses commanded for the cleansing as a testimony to them. Okay. So he's saying you're clean, and what you had to do in the Old Testament, the law was you had to go to a priest and show yourself, or he would check you out and then declare you were clean. Then you had to go and purify yourself through a sacrifice and
Mitzvah.
ceremonial stuff.
Handy but chicken. Is
So,
that the thing they were,
what's
all
that?
they ever had? All they had was animals of some sort to sacrifice?
That's all they were supposed to say.
Yeah, that's yeah. So yet the news about him spread through more and more crowds. So he wasn't supposed to tell anybody, but news got out. Yeah.
Well,
Most important
They
part.
also saw what happened.
Well, yeah, that too. But it sounds like in this story, Luke didn't. If you look at this story in the other Gospels, he went and told people about it. And Luke doesn't really say that here, but like you said, it got out. The word got out. So Luke's not pointing fingers at him, but the other Gospels do say that he went.
Well, remember, Luke is writing this to the person that asked him to write him a letter and tell him about it.
Yeah.
right? Forgotten what his name was.
Theophilus.
Theophilus, all right. He's writing to Theophilus. So here's what's going on. This is what we found out
Yeah.
happened.
This is what I can confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the most important part of that passage is number 16.
Which says,
But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed.
yes.
So Jesus was an introvert.
Only an introvert would.
That's my favorite part of the story,
So
because
I
when you
think-
have these big things that happen, you have to withdraw in order to just again, it's about the balance.
Recharge your battery.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
is that, you know, I don't know that he necessarily wanted to do those big things at some points. And it's like, you know, he gets drawn into doing it. It's like, I'm not sure I wanted to do that. I gotta go pray about it, because I'm not sure I should
I mean,
have done that.
Well, I don't think Jesus
Or
was.
well,
But I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I can relate to this very much so. I mean, I'm not an introvert, but let me tell you, after Sunday mornings, I just need to take a break, you know, because there's 20 people that show up for our services, and I would say 18 of them want to talk to me at some point.
But that's a good thing.
It is a good thing, and I try to give my attention. I try to stay focused. But I'm also in the back of my mind. I've also got something to do over here. I got something to do over here, and something to do. And so this constantly have to deal with people, and that's not
making sure you don't say the right, you know, saying the right things, doing
Yeah.
the right things.
It's not dealing with people. It's having to so many at one time. To deal with people, to have someone, hey, if you come over and visit, and hey, we have a chat, that would be perfect. But yet, because of combined time and everything, it's just all at once. And you can see Jesus gets this a lot. And so that need to, like you said, to redo his battery. I think that's important. Go ahead.
In my Bible, I have life points,
Uh-huh.
and this one is about that. And it says, Jesus made sure he had seasons of peace and time alone. He ministered to the people, but he slipped away regularly from the crowds to be alone and pray. Surely if Jesus needed this type of lifestyle, so do we also.
Go ahead.
well,
That's an excellent point. That's
Jesus heals people, does miracles, and it takes something out of them.
Sure.
We hear that time and time again.
Yeah.
The woman who touched his robe and he
felt the power.
felt
Healed,
what went
yeah.
out. He's a rock star. He is performing, and I don't mean that in a entertainment point of view. He is performing as a rock star. People think of him as a rock star, and rock stars we know have to take time out.
Yeah.
I don't know how Taylor Swift does what she does.
They-
I have no idea how she.
I actually heard
Because
that
she
she
does
actually has a shower on her plane.
Oh,
So-
wow, how did you know that? I just want to bring up one point because I think it's really important. When he healed a man, he said, "Don't tell anyone, but go back to your priest, and make your sacrifice," because Jesus understood the culture, and he also understood the boundaries of the Jewish faith that he didn't want to cross and say, "Oh, I did this,
Right.
worship me."
Mhm.
And it's important for us to remember that when we deal with people who aren't of the same culture we have, it's still to respect those boundaries, still to keep the tenets of your faith and what you believe. We need to be the same way, and we don't think that we have the answer and we know it all. If you're Baptist and you feel like you still need to worship this way, this is what we're showing you, and now you can take that back to where you worship and maybe enlighten as well. But so many times we want to, be more critical.
You got to do it our way or
Right.
no way.
We don't want to honor those boundaries that we expect people to honor ours.
He's building his church on the Jewish church.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Which would make you, what would it look like if he were, an Aztec? Jesus
He
comes,
wasn't.
but he wasn't. But he would have built on whatever their religion was.
But he
right?
still kept the boundaries of the
Exactly.
church. That's what I'm saying. He
That's-
still
Right,
respected it.
So I want to close with one more thing, and this is something you can take with you. it says Jesus went away, and he needed that time, like Patty pointed out, he needed that time away to pray and be with God. Okay, look at your own lives. Look how hectic it is. You're always doing something. You're always, but yet, how many times do you just sit down and just in silence? And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that was one of my New Year's resolutions was to not watch so much TV, because that's kind of a distraction, and it's kind of relaxing, but it's mindless relaxing, right? You're not really thinking of anything. You're just kind of letting images come into your head.
The frustration.
But yet, turn everything off and take a few minutes just to
And
sit.
your whole day will go much better.
And you think that you don't have time because you're always, but yet
You
look
have
at
to make the time.
look at how Jesus.
When you make the time, it helps.
Yeah.
Exactly,
tremendously.
definitely.
Push the
definitely.
mute
We
button.
need that.
Yeah.
All right.